We got this opportunity to gather past and present board chairs, board members, key staff people to talk and celebrate about APA at its 35th anniversary and to learn about the new organization name and welcome in the new era of True Ground Housing Partners.
It is a little surreal to be in the room with all the individuals that made APA possible, and to have all the executive directors and these incredible board chairs that poured so much of themselves, 9 years at a time, even more, into making this all possible, and to be able to carry on their legacy into this next stage of APA's growth. It's humbling and it's an honor.
So after 35 years under the name of Arlington Partnership for Affordable Housing, I hope you'll join me in celebrating our new name, True Ground Housing Partners. It has been a privilege to serve an organization that has stayed true to its foundation by providing high-quality services and housing to the people that need it most.
We take on hard projects, and a lot of times we do it because we believe in our partner. We believe it's a community need. We work together, and it's not an individual making any of this happen. It's a team of the board, a team of the staff, third-party partners, municipal governments. That's a special sauce. That's why the word partners had to be there, because it doesn't work without all of those pieces together.
Jean, I'm going to start with you, actually.
Okay.
Tell us about the founders. Tell us about their vision, their interface with the organization, and their faith commitment, and how that became part of APA.
Okay. So the 8 founders, they were all motivated, I'd say 3 things in particular. One, absolutely their faith. Catholic social justice teaching. And there had been an encyclical, which is a fancy word for a policy paper that the Pope, and it was talking about housing equality. And that really, really motivated them. They also were all very involved in the civil rights movement, being part of the marches. And then on a more practical level, they could see the difficulty that their own adult children were having. Primarily college educated, and coming back and having a very difficult time affording to live in Arlington. So all of those things compelled them to do something. And a real driving kind of force for them, and it actually was the tagline for APA originally, was "in the shelter of each other the people live." So they wanted to lift people up. And that's what they set out to do. And their vision was fairly modest. They were going to buy, a small, older, just after World War II era housing. And the first acquisition was Fisher House 1 and 2. And they were going to purchase and preserve it as affordable housing. But they also were quite ambitious because they wanted to have those renovated and maintained, managed to very high quality. My driving force and my direction was, make sure it's something that your family's going to be proud to live in. You will recommend it to someone you love, and they will happily live in it. And they wanted it to remain affordable for low income households in perpetuity, and raise the value and the aesthetics, not just for the people living there, while that's very important, but also for the entire community.
They were great people. They were so much actually fun to be with. But it was just a great atmosphere. And you're talking about kind of like family. I know after a while, Midge Holy used to say, "Oh, Bill, I want to adopt you. This is so great." I mean, they were so appreciative of what, what it was going. And I'm really grateful that they learned to let go as a board, right? And as others joined in, that they didn't hold on to it.
I guess I go back to the 1990s, and I've lived in APA properties that we've acquired for 30 years now. Arna Valley and Marabella, and now Park Roslyn. And what I see about that progression has really been exciting. I decided that I wanted to be involved. I think APA was one of the first connections that people had, given that a home is something that people feel not only comfortable in, but gives them a sense of belonging. And what I was always struck by with APA is that APA had a ground roots connection to people. The Housing Commission had to vote on a lot of programs that they took APA for its word, which was that we will build not only affordable housing, but superior housing. And you don't find that in the country, I don't think.
Jean, tell us a little bit about the partnership with Arlington County. How was that in those early years? And clearly a partner for many more years, but how was it in the early years?
So APA was probably not in its infancy when I got there, but it was a child. It was in the child stage still. And then within about a year or so, it got a little more rebellious. And those preteen years, I think, started taking hold. So Arlington County was quite involved with APA. Through the county assisted, they had a fund that we could use for pre-development, which was a fantastic tool because, as you all know, if you don't have liquidity, you're not going to be able to seize on an opportunity. So we were able to use that fund to get some earnest money deposits, and then also some feasibility studies through an architect and engineers. So that was fantastic. And then they also, APA and the county worked together for property acquisitions. It was the first money in. And so that was incredibly important, and I'm just sitting here today just smiling at the impact that has had.
Yeah. I was just going to say, the land banking that we rebuilt a number of those sites that you bought during the 90s, very exciting.
Yeah.
What are you most proud of in your relationship with APA? I'm going to start with Bill.
Well, I would say it was being on the board. And I started, before there were term limits. So I was actually on the board for a long time, through a couple of generations. But it was so actually fun and engaging to be with people, can't even name them all, like the Doug Dowlings, Randy Andersons, Rita Bambergers. There was such a strong sense of commitment. And I'm just most proud of being part of such a capable organization.
I would agree that being on the board, and specifically with myself being a resident board member, my connection to APA residents, a connection that is really rooted in the cause. And that cause is a better life for people and a better quality of life. And one aspect that I've seen that I haven't seen in any other type of entity in the nonprofit affordable housing realm is being so connected to seniors. And our senior housing future, I believe, is going to be robust. And the programs that we put out there, I'll speak about one program. We came up with a program to have computer training for seniors. And there's one 83-year-old resident that I know who had only a cordless phone. And I used to always say, but she has a cordless phone. People say, oh, you mean a cell phone? I said, no, a cordless phone. And that's all she had. And she took the course that we provided, and now she's able to do Zoom, and she has family in Germany, and she's able to speak with them.
Great story. Great story. All right, last on this panel. Jean, what are you most proud of?
Opportunities. So, like I said, I did not have the intensive housing finance background, but people took they took a chance on me. They created an opportunity for me. And that opportunity transformed my life for the better. The people that I met, the people that I still know, the work that I was able to do, and the opportunities that APA created and continues to create and is going to create for thousands of people. And it's life-giving, it's life-enriching. On a personal historical note, Calvert Manor Apartments, that was the first property in the state of Virginia to use low-income housing tax credits coupled with historic tax credits on both the federal and the state level. So that was a good thing. But the opportunity I had to sit across the closing table from the sellers, that building was designed by Miran Mesrobian, who's very, very famous, well-known. He probably designed half of the grand apartment buildings in Washington, D.C. His sons were the ones who sold it. And they told me stories about literally digging the foundation in their summers off of college. Their dad said, you have to literally know this from the ground up. So for me to hear that, and then for me to tell them, well, this is what we're going to do with it. This is our plan, and we're going to get these tax credits, and we're going to get these historic tax, and they were thrilled. So to have the opportunity to be able to do work that benefits so many people.
Susan, so you worked for the county for 30 years?
Almost.
Okay, and the housing and planning and development. How did that impress upon you the need for affordable housing, and how did you kind of come to the advocacy role to be on the board chair?
At the time that APA was created, the county had gone through a period of extensive condo conversion. I don't know if a lot of people remember that, but Fairlington, Arlington Village, Colonial Village had all gone from being market housing, market rate affordable housing in many cases, to condominiums. Completely wiped out a significant percentage of the rental housing stock. And the county was anxious at the thought of losing these garden apartment complexes that had defined the housing opportunities throughout the county for many, many years. Frankly, couldn't build our way out of it with the growth that we had. So to have a group of people who were committed to preservation of affordable housing, anxious to work with the county and with the community, was a godsend. It would dovetail beautifully with existing county policies, and it promoted a partnership that has continued on to this day. I think one of the most important things that the county contributed was the willingness to create tools and process. When Nina came and talked to us about bump outs, we didn't have a way to do bump outs, but we knew we needed family housing. So we created a tool that allowed a use permit to be approved to modify all the things that the state said were allowed to be modified for condo conversion. We did a variety of different tools to facilitate preservation, density bonuses, and things like that. And not easy. Those projects are never easy. They're always expensive, but we had particular goals that were fully aligned with APA, and so it became essential that we work together to create results.
Yeah. So, but Christopher, I'm going to talk to you about your time at APA, and especially maybe about Arlington Mill, which was a tremendous project. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I laugh a lot. People underestimate nonprofits and ambition. And Nina, while she was very nice, was super competitive. And she was quiet about it. I was not. So we kind of had a lot of fun with that. But Arlington Mill was a project where the county had some excess land and it had a county facility, and it said, look, we want to do something that's going to be really impactful. Right? And we got together with one of my favorite architectural firms and came up with something that they found really compelling. And I think was a big deal for the organization in terms of showing that we could work at a high level of complexity, that we understood public-private partnerships, again, thematically thinking about being nice and easy to work with, right? And they gave us the opportunity to do it. And so we were able to pull that off.
To get it built, and to get it built with the county doing their part of the community center, it was I just remember being that's a very complicated project. And the importance of staff, I want to get to you, Nina, on staffing, right? You come into an organization, it was lightly staffed when you started. How was the growth of staffing and your take on it?
Well, yeah, it was shocking when I arrived and there were 3 staff, right? Me and the secretary. It was a slow start. We also had no cash. So Steve was telling me how he had to juggle the bills until actually on the Fisher House rehab, it had already started construction, and a guy from the county, our partnership with the county, said, well, you could try and go and get historic tax credits. And I said, historic tax credits? But it's already started construction. He said, well, we can figure out a way to do that. So thank God, we got like $800,000, filled the gap in the project, was able to finish it. That was the beginning of my indoctrination into complexity. Right? And bringing staff on board was a constant learning experience. One of my first staff I hired was Kim Painter, who is the Vice President of Talent and Collaboration at APA. So I love the journey that so many of our staff took. It was a joy to start with this small kind of tablet and figure out how we could build more opportunity. And I was always committed, I'd worked all my career in nonprofits, to the partnership with the board. And I knew they were a real strength for us. So strong staff and strong board, and being transparent with all of them. Integrity was really important to us. You know, those values that were approved in our strategic plan, we tried to really live those. Excellence and innovation, we never backed away. We had hugely, and we thought Arlington Mill was complicated. It actually got more complicated. We started doing hybrid projects, 2 different entities within one building. Oh, and then we had 2 different entities and a ground floor that was leased to La Cocina VA, now rebranded Kitchen of Purpose, a church on the first floor. That Gilliam Place was the one that I really felt like we cut our teeth on. And Carmen was so important in that innovation and the acquisitions phase, right? Figuring out how we could take a piece of land and do more with it to do our mission more.
And also dealing with challenges. There always are challenges. So Susan, I'm going to toss a question at you about challenges and maybe the connection between the challenge of COVID and working on DEI initiatives. If you want to maybe...
Sure, COVID was a challenge unlike any I think anybody had encountered before. Nobody knew what was safe, what was safe to do, how close could you be. And so the staff immediately leaned into issues of food insecurity, of schooling for children. People couldn't even get their children educated because they didn't have internet connections. The things that for those of us on the board were inconvenient, getting groceries, were impossible challenges for our residents. The staff leaned in to find ways to get people rent assistance, emergency assistance, internet connections, you name it. They lived the mission throughout this time, but it sharpened the focus, I think, on the incredible disparity between the larger Arlington community and our residents, the racial inequity, the terrible incidents that were happening in the larger country helped us understand that we had to do more, and we had to underline the issue of racial equity and take it on as a task for the board to support the staff and to support the residents more fully and more authentically. We began a small group, a committee within the board to talk about how we could further integrate racial equity into our work, put that lens on the programs that were provided, getting the residents the needs met, but as the residents expressed them. And so it became a new value for APA, and one that we felt was incredibly important. We now have reached a point, not where the work is done, because the work is unending, but where it is now integrated into everything from purchasing to programming to all forms of support.
Carmen has really picked up the mantle of being a cooperative partner, of being humble, and that attitude and kind of ethos in the organization makes it easy for, I think, APA to slip in and out of places, right? When you're looking at a leader who comes in and says, hey, how can I be a partner? How can I be helpful? it makes people like me very eager to try to figure out how to solve problems together. And then the shared history that we have, I'm going to do whatever I can for the organization and the district. And it makes me proud to say that I was a member of the team. If I could, though, just about diversity, even before diversity became a hot button, if you looked at the team that Nina built, right? She had people like me, she had people like Carmen who were working mothers coming into the team. She was always really intentional about making sure that women had an opportunity to participate. We had members of the LGBTQ community who were on staff, and there was a space where you could be whoever you were, right? And be a part of APA and contribute. And so as a staff person, when I look back to my time here, it was a fertile place. And the board never messed with us. And as somebody who has to manage a board now and who's seen different boards, right? Like just the protective shield that you all put around us to facilitate our success was amazing.
Talk about another challenge, Kevin, is Celebrate Home and fundraising. So I was never very good at that. I'm not good at asking for money. And so I steered clear of that committee for sure. You've been on that committee. And I understand, kind of talking back to Gene's time, the CDBG block grant in the early days, between that and the circus fundraiser just kept us alive. I mean, it's so hard, it's so important. Tell us about the Celebrate Home journey, your journey into asking people for money.
So my confession is I also don't like fundraising. And there is only one organization that I would fundraise for, and that is APA. And that is because I have a deep love and respect for the organization, and there are very few people that enjoy fundraising. I do it with passion for APA because I love APA. People have heard me say that APA is my church. I say that because I did not go to church growing up, but I've always wondered what it would feel like to have a community of people where you share values and a sense of purpose. And that's what APA provided for me.
For the original founders, the word partnership was important. Nina, in 1 minute, tell me your feelings about how partnerships work with APA.
It was always part of our, I love Christopher's phrase, DNA. We could do nothing without our partnerships, and that included the funders who made it possible, the donors who gave us this unrestricted money to do our resident services, but also our permanent supportive housing partners, right? The people who are trying to help the homeless and the people most in need, and as Christopher talked about at Arlington Mill, us leaning into that. We're housers, you're doing this wonderful social services, how can we work together on that? And that has been part of APA, I think, throughout its history. A real commitment to be a leader in permanent supportive housing. The compassion, these values are continuing. And that, when I stepped away, it didn't fade, it actually grew farther. So I'm so proud of that. I'm so proud of Carmen. I'm so proud of all of you that have taken it even further. Well, some of you know this about me. I love strategic planning, and we've kind of sprinkled that, the values in the strategic planning. But you just did a new strategic plan, and Rich, I think, or Matt, were you the board chair when you did the 2023 plan? Tell me about the new strategic plan and how that's impacting both where APA has been in the last year or so and where True Ground is going.
I think a lot of real estate organizations, the strategy is really just the accumulation of the projects that you do. It tends to be very bottom up and very opportunistic. And I give APA a lot of credit for saying you always have to be open to that because the external environment is going to change. But how can we be more intentional about it and make sure that as we respond to these opportunities, we're being thoughtful and strategic about what's really going to advance the purpose, the values, the mission the most, because there's a lot of things that you could do and it'd be easy to get distracted. So to me, strategy is as much about what you choose not to do as what you choose to do. And the key things I think that came out of that process were, some of it was just validating what frankly APA was already doing, being in multiple jurisdictions, growing the portfolio, but a commitment to really growing it materially to 7,500 homes. Really to serve as many people as we could, and to providing services at every community. And if that's there from the top down, it's not, well, if we can fit it into the deal, we will. It's like, if we can't fit it into the deal, we're not going to do the deal. And that's a very different kind of mindset.
I've heard you many times saying you get to work with the most amazing staff, and I've won some awards now for being the employer of choice. Tell me about that journey for you and creating that commitment to staff.
Well, I think we all recognize this is a team sport, from the finance and the accounting to the real estate. This is incredibly complex projects, $350 million capital stacks. We have to be able to attract the best and brightest to affordable housing to meet the cause and the moment. And we are very fortunate that the board sees that, and to have your support to ensure that, every year we are looking and comping where should we, set compensation, but not just for the top part of the org chart, every position at APA, because that's part of our equity work. It would be inequitable for us to not care for all of our associates, and for mental health as well, and for support, and for time away. I mean, a lot of times our residents are, talking to residents that are in trauma. And so they're every day trying to navigate someone to stay housed or to have access to the resources they need. So really doubling down on listening to our team, getting feedback. We had a racial equity audit that was anonymous, where we had a third party come in and then shared those results out with our board as part of the strategic plan, so that they can embed all of those voices into the work. And I'm very proud of that, and we're up to 56 people now.
Wow. And Rich, you and Matt have both worked in real estate many years. How do you see APA's performance, its commitment to excellence and innovation, differ and stand out from either the work you do or the work you see in the market rate industry?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I'm always amazed every time you go to an APA property. It's just unbelievable the level of quality that they're delivering for the residents, right? And then people talk about affordability, and it's kind of interesting, right? Because they have this perception of this negative perception of affordable housing. And so when you step into an APA property, you're like, wow, this is affordable. I'd love to live here, right? And so when you think about affordability, it really is it's relative. It's just housing, right? But it's relative to what you make. And so, and I love what APA does is they provide such a high quality product for its residents. They feel good about where they live. APA provides a high quality product because they want to, and they're the best in class. They're best at what they do. And it's just really kind of fun for me to sit back and watch them perform, because they're so talented, right? So talented, so smart. One of the best assets that APA has are the people.
Katie, what do you think might be the challenges and opportunities for True Ground Housing Partners? I'm working on it. True Ground Housing Partners for the next decade, for the next 30 years.
Sure. I think when I look forward to the next 30 years and think about where we are relative to where APA was when it started 35 years ago, I think the biggest challenge, frankly, facing all of us is the severe shortage of homes nationally, at all price points, at all levels. And I think that is a unique challenge for now True Ground as it approaches its next 35 years, because it creates pressures that this organization was never designed to solve. It's really interesting to hear at the founding, this was part of the social safety net. This was an organization that was about serving a segment of our community, presumably during a period of times in their lives. Now, that inability to find housing that is affordable is nearly universal to anyone born after APA was. What does that mean when we have a community where people making 80, 100% of area median income can't afford a place to live? What does that kind of pressure does that place on APA and now True Ground, when it is already stretching so hard to be able to get deeper into meeting the needs of people making 30 or 50% of area median income? But when APA was founded, when you had somebody making about half the area median income, they could find an apartment for rent somewhere around 26% was the median rental price of their income to get out into the open market. So maybe they needed a little bit of a boost to help them get stable in housing, and then they could move out into the open market. They could then move into home ownership because the average condo price at the time was about 3 times their annual salary. Now those numbers in Arlington in 2024 look like the average home costing 46% of somebody making 50% AMI, right? That is not only rent burden, that's inching towards severely rent burden. The average condo price, 7 times their salary. There's no way to graduate to home ownership. And so this organization that was sort of founded to give people a leg up, the next step is just so out of sight. And so I think about the pressures that places. Certainly it makes the work of True Ground even more essential. I think the opportunities are that we are collectively starting to get our heads around that housing shortage. And I think because the problem has touched home, pardon the pun, for so many people, there is now a very widespread recognition about the importance of this work. To see private sector partners step up in ways that, during my tenure on the board would have been beyond our imagination in 2016. To see, I think, just your average everyday residents start to experience what this problem looks like and to come to the tentpole that APA has put in the ground around which we can coalesce and organize. That's an extraordinary set of opportunities in the next 35 years as well.
What are you most proud of in your work with APA? And I'll start with you, Matt.
The impact that we're making, by growing the footprint. And just to get under that just a little bit, the reason why APA can have such an amazing impact is because APA is absolutely the best-in-class affordable housing developer and owner and operator in the DMV, and the DMV, honestly, is the best-in-class of any metropolitan area in the country that I've seen. We're very proud to partner with APA, and I always say, let's find the APA of Seattle and partner with them. Let's find the APA of LA, and they don't exist. There isn't an organization that has the capabilities, the commitment, the staff, the balance sheet, all of those things.
I'm most proud of is, I think we're staying true to the roots of this organization, the values of our founder in the work we're doing today, and that we're managing to address the affordable housing problem beyond just the borders of Arlington, which was your initial vision, to now the greater DMV. And then also, as we're invited to the national table to solve the big problem that Katie's talking about. This is a national crisis. And APA is now being invited more and more to talk about our experience. How we've been able to grow to have 6 projects under construction this year and to keep people housed and at the same time. Try to create a narrative where it's not landlords against tenants, but how we can work side by side with local government to make the case and get the funds we need. And then, take that to the state level and even now to hopefully the national level, because, we are in need of an infrastructure type of program nationally to help, our demographic of the under 50% AMI stay housed. So that's what I'm most proud of, is that we're able to grow, but the foundation of APA is still there. It's the one that you all built. So thank you.
Wonderful. Final words. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody.
I look at it as a looking back to see how we got to where we are today. And it was always helpful to look back and learn from your history.
I'm enormously proud of APA, each and every person. I feel very fortunate to be a part of it. I'm so grateful that there are these bright, talented, innovative minds at work.
What a gift it was. I loved hearing the ways in which people embrace their service. We had 3 former or current board chairs in the room, and they talked about how passionate they were about being part of APA.
Today was a terrific day. I think it reminded all of us, at least for me, why I care about APA and why I want to be a part of it. It was exciting to be regrounded in the history and to remember the social justice impetus that brought the families together to do this.
It's worth pausing to look back and to really do that celebration of how much that work has resulted in changed lives.
It's amazing to see how far this organization has come. I used to think of APA as the little engine that could, but now it's really turning into a locomotive. and you can see that momentum continuing to build.
History is important because it informs the challenges and the components of what you see today. To understand that APA started from this little seedling of a project to being a regional player is a big deal, right? But it also tells us that the possibilities are endless, right? So even if you start very small, if you started with a committed group of people, you can make a huge difference.
I've been involved with APA for 15 years now, and to have Jean all the way to Carmen and Rich in one room, and for all of us to be telling one cohesive story together was incredible.
My hope for True Ground Housing Partners is to remember its history, but don't be stuck on its history. Be innovative. Continue being innovative.
I think that this organization has the DNA and the ethos to be cooperative and collaborative, right? To have an incredible amount of integrity and approach things very thoughtfully.
So my hope is that True Ground continues to extend its reach and to continue to provide family housing, veteran housing, individual housing for the many, many neighbors who still need it.
My hope for the future of True Ground Housing is to continue to do exactly what they're doing right now, right? Just continue to be a change maker in the affordable housing space, continue to provide high quality homes for its residents, continue to provide the wraparound services that the residents need to live their best life.
Happy 35th anniversary, True Ground, and may you continue to be the unicorn that you've been for the past 35 years.
Happy 35th anniversary.
Happy 35th anniversary, True Ground, and here's to no more basements.
Happy 35th.
Happy 35th anniversary.
Happy 35th anniversary.
Happy 35th anniversary.
Happy 35th anniversary.
Happy 35th anniversary. I wish you all the best in the future. Keep up the good work.